Would you mind a couple photo ops for the family?
Absolutely. No, I take
Yes. Camera's out.
Tom's out of it.
Photo bomb.
Photo bomb. There we go. Count three. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. Again.
Okay. Next is citizens' comments. I'll invite anybody to speak if they wish, but since we have a big crowd, I'll limit comments to 3 minutes apiece for a total of 20 minutes, if that's all right. So, anybody have anything they'd like to start us off with? Okay. Well, there'll be an opportunity later if you'd like. Moving on to committee updates. We haven't had any subcommittee meetings, so nothing. No, we didn't have policy.
You want the alumni?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No problem. We ended up having our alumni homecoming weekend, which was a huge success, and big thank yous went out to, I think it was over 51 or 52 alumni came back for career day. Very, very moving, some of the speeches that we heard from the students afterwards. I think a few of them, there was not a dry eye from some of the alumni, so it was very rewarding. The other weekend activities was the concert for the alumni choir and alumni band, which was, again, another huge success. It was nice, actually I have goosebumps when I'm saying this, hearing the students sing Stairway to Heaven by Led Zeppelin, it was unbelievable. I think the viewership is over 3,000, I think, on Facebook right now, just from that one video. In addition to that, we had our first alumni basketball game, which was awesome. Deb Spinelli was a referee, wherever she is. And I also was referee with her, and she lapped me about 3 times, which was amazing. We had to postpone the alumni soccer games due to the inclement weather. And Sunday we did the Tiger Dash road race, which I think we had 25 participants. And we had the annual cow plop, and fortunately the cow did what it was supposed to do an hour and a half later on 1 square, so there was no weighing involved. And we had one winner, which was actually an alumni. He lives in Putnam right now, but his name is Brian Maynard, and he was the winner of $1,000. And the other $1,000 came back to the Alumni Association for scholarships. Okay. All in all, it was a great weekend.
Anything else? I will like to make an announcement about Mr. Lindley. I talked to his wife today, and I have her permission. He's recuperating in the hospital. They hope that he comes home next week. So everybody send him an email and wish him well, because I know he would appreciate that. But hopefully he'll be back here before too long. So moving on to our educational update. First is Student Spotlight.
Okay. So our first TMHS Student Spotlight of the month is Olivia Dunphy, and she's right here. Each month, Turtle Memorial High School Student Spotlight Program recognizes a student who has demonstrated outstanding achievement, character, leadership, attitude, and or contribution to the school and community. October Student Spotlight honoree is freshman Olivia Delphi. Regarding Olivia's motivation, she states, "My family and friends motivate me to be the best person I can be. They're always encouraging me to try to be hard, and they're always supportive. I really look up to both parents as role models. They work hard and they're always there for me. My two brothers, David and Devin, are also a source of inspiration, especially in sports." In middle school, Olivia had many accomplishments, including induction to NJHS, earning high honors all 4 years in middle school, and receiving the Every Teacher's Dream Award and Coach's Award for basketball in 8th grade. At Turtelot, Olivia has continued to be highly active in her school community. She plays 3 sports for Team HS, soccer, basketball, and softball. Olivia notes, "I believe it is important to represent my school with pride in athletics." She recently ran and won for the treasurer position of the Team HS's freshman class. She's a member of the Student Council, Turtelot Student Leadership Team, Yearbook, and the Future Business Leaders of America. Regarding her involvement, Olivia states, "I hope by becoming involved right away in high school, I can foster relationships with many students, not just those in my own class. I also hope that my involvement in my school community will help me be a well-rounded student who will be better prepared for college and success beyond high school." Her plans after graduation are to go to college and study business. Olivia Dopley's personal message for the school and community is, "Don't let others' opinion change who you are, and always keep a positive attitude."
Dad and Mom, you want a photo, Dad? No? Why don't you come?
I dressed up for it.
That's okay. Oh, Mom too.
Yeah.
There you go. There we go, ready? Thank you.
So next is the regular reports, and we don't have much this time, but we do have the football Thanksgiving Day game is home on November 21st, if you want to go to that. We also have our second annual Turtelot's Got Talent in auditorium at 7 o'clock on November 29th. We have our high school winter concert in the auditorium at December 5th for 12:30 for MS and high school can go to. And we also have, where's the other one?
On November 20th, we're having the Powder Puff Prep Rally.
That one. Come watch, I'll be playing.
Probably will break a bone.
I'm kidding. Hopefully not. And we also have some voice forms this time. Which ones do you want to read?
Okay, so there was a continued issue about heating, and as Board of Ed liaisons, we're going to work together in a budget subcommittee to try to work this out.
And we also have people wanting to get volleyball as a sport in high school. I know I talked to Deb about this last year, and it takes right, Deb? Talked about it?
Always, every year.
Yeah. We have to get people to sign up. We never have people, takes away people from sports, but hey, maybe we'll get it one time. I don't know. Because people want it. And that's it.
So what's the issue with the heat?
A lot of people think that the heating is like it's too cold in the school.
So are the students getting together and doing a petition? What's the step you're moving towards, do you know? No, okay.
Just complain.
So it's just being talked about?
Yes.
Okay.
We did try raising the heat last year,
Yeah, I thought we did.
and we'll see how it works. If it doesn't work, we'll see what we can do. Anybody have questions for our students? Great, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Just to supplement, please encourage all community members to join us at the December 5th winter concert. It is a free event. It's a wonderful holiday celebration of music, and everybody is invited.
They mentioned it, but Deb, why is the game on Wednesday night now? What happened? What's that about? It's like a 40-year tradition for my family. That, you know.
No one wants to work.
Seriously.
Seriously, you can't find anybody, they'll do the gate, do the chains, it's becoming more and more difficult. We can't even do it on a regular day, never mind Thanksgiving morn.
All right.
So by going the night before, we're also hoping we'll get a bigger crowd for night game.
Okay.
Worth a try.
A lot of schools have done it, we're not the only one.
Okay.
have had fluctuation in and out, so that, and you can see that our enrollment in October was the same number, but we have had a lot of activity as far as withdrawals and registrations back and forth among all three schools. But the number holds at 988. We currently have 15 students in out-of-district placement, and as you can see, going through, how many students are at our BOAG, Ellis, and other out-of-district schools. So they've been updated by our data manager, so those numbers that you see there for November are accurate, or as accurate as they could be as of last Friday. So. The middle school update. So first of all, I see some faces that were at the last board meeting, and parents did voice their concerns about some of the behaviors and situation at Thompson Middle School. Since our last meeting, and actually had already been in the works, we have added additional resources to the middle school. There is a full-time behavior specialist now assigned solely to Thompson Middle School. We've added a permanent substitute teacher so that we don't have, when student teachers are absent, that we have a familiar face that's able to cover some of the classrooms. And we also have added a behavior tech. Our final hire, as you know, we had some employees who didn't work out at the beginning of the school year, so we had to replace those employees. Those have been done. It was 2 special educators. Those have been hired. But the last remaining was a behavior technician for our self-contained class at the middle school. And as of probably next week or the week after, that position will be filled. We've just interviewed this week, so that's taken care of. All the parents of the middle school and everyone actually here in town knows that we have the school being led by an interim principal, Mr. Steve Knowlton. He will be here before the next board meeting to meet the members of the Board of Ed and the public at large. And I do encourage everyone to come and meet and greet Mr. Knowlton. His first day was today at Thompson Middle School. We have seen the implementation of a robust positive behavior intervention and support program, making sure that we have incentives for our students to act appropriately, and they have to earn their way into some of the special activities. Our first Fabulous Friday was held 2 weeks ago. That was pretty successful, and we have another coming up on this Friday. We are also refining the behavior matrix and the behavior expectations for our students here at Thompson Middle School.
What about the ruler overview?
And so we didn't do a formal presentation for this evening, but I did want to give you an update. As you know, the ruler program is a social emotional learning program, and it's a district-wide program being implemented. In year 1, the program works with the adults. All of our principals, there's a principal administrative representative from each school who has gone through training. Myself, Mr. Sugarman, went out for training this past summer, and then just most recently we had a school-based team each go out and learn the strategies of ruler. On January the 2nd, our whole entire faculty, this is a systemic district-wide implementation. It will be reviewed with our entire faculty on January 2nd. It's to improve culture and climate, but mostly to support our students. But first we have to learn to support ourselves as adults, and so that's the focus of the rural program. And so we're very excited that the teacher leaders and administrators have just come back. We had a district-wide meeting. It's one of the very few systemic programs that we have in place outside of curriculum, where we sat together and we started to talk about the implementation of an initiative district-wide. And I want to thank Principal Baker and Mr. Sugarman and Mr. Prentice and Mrs. Beltram for all working together with the teachers to implement that program. I'm very excited. You know that that is a program that is very well supported by our Commissioner of Education, and it's comes from a lot of research out of Yale University. So we are very excited to implement the ruler program. And after January 2nd, we will probably come to the board to do a better presentation.
Okay. How about our budget timeline?
So our budget update and then our budget process timeline. Mr. Jenkins. And can I say something before, while Mr. Gentes is getting set up? Okay. So we're looking at our FY 2020 budget timeline, and I look at all of these parents that are here this evening. And, you know, one of the reasons that, you know, we're able to add some additional resources this year is we're really dipping deep into each school-based budget to cover those resources. And I want everyone here to know that we don't have ample human capital resources here in the district. And it will be very important to have parent support when we go before the Board of Finance to promote our budget, and then more importantly, when it's time to vote. But those resources are essential to make sure that all of our students are supported. So I just segue right into that timeline.
I just passed around 2 sheets. The first one is just a financial update, where we're at as far as the budget, 18,523. Current spending is at 4.6 million. Encumbrances are 11.8. So the total projected spending at this point is 16,456,000, which is 88.8% of our total budget, which is pretty much in line with some of the other districts in this area. I just wanted to, again, this is probably, you're gonna hear this every month, that the budget's tight. It's real tight in special ed. It's in special ed tuition, it's already above what was budgeted. As far as if you include encumbrances, it's about $85,000 over right now. And transportation is something that is, we've got a lot of things that it's gonna be over budget. We've got one more special ed van than we had originally budgeted for. Apparently we're using a lot more fuel than we thought we'd be using at this point, which we've started to try to pinpoint as to why we're using that much fuel as compared to last year. For the cafeteria fund, I just wanted to highlight their income for October was $60,389 and the expenses were $43,687 for an ending balance of $16,702. The year-to-date balance is a positive $28,024. For free and reduced lunch, at Fisher it's 49%, middle school is 43%, the high school is 43%, and the district is at 45%. We're serving a lot more meals than we were last year and in previous years. For example, for the month of October, as a district, we sold close to 9,000, we distributed close to 9,000 breakfasts. The year before, last year in October, we did a little over 2,000, and in 2017, a little over 2,000.
And that's attributed to the free breakfast program, and the students are taking breakfast and they are eating it, and kudos to the teachers and administrators for figuring out ways to encourage students to eat every day, because that sets their day off on the right note.
But even with the free breakfast that we're selling, in October, we sold more lunches than the previous 2 years also. So as between both meals for the entire district, for October, there were 20,000 meals sold or distributed. Last year, at the same time, there were about close to 12,000, so it's an 8,000 increase it's virtually all in breakfast, but it's still pretty amazing. And the fact that they're, the cafeteria is running at a surplus. The second sheet that I gave out is a little more detailed on the expenses for the cafeteria. I know it's been a sore point in previous years, but year to date, again, it's $28,024. Last year, from the records, I'm working my way back into going to the old cafeteria records. Right now I'm in 2014, and basically in 2014, it looks like the district lost 60,000 in the cafeteria. The next year lost like 54,000. The next year lost, I think it was another 15,000, and then we come into the last 2 years. Last year there was money being made, and this year, again, the run rate is much higher than previous years, but the year to date is at $28,000, which is more than last year the total was.
So that kind of segues into the next item on the agenda, Chairman Witowski, is that we have some non-union cafeteria workers, some that are part-time workers that are making minimum wage or less, and are oh yeah, you can go over the budget timeline too. We skipped over you. Sorry.
But has this been shared with the Board of Finance and everybody else?
It was based on the Board of Finance's calendar, and when we go Thursday night, I'll give them that.
Oh, all right, just give them that so that maybe they'll
Yes. We have a question about.
Yeah, if you have questions about the budget, this would be a good time to ask Bob.
On the fuel overage, is that vehicle or is that building fuel that we're over? Do we
Total
know?
amount of gallons consumed?
Is it all encompassing?
No, it's
Bus.
diesel.
It's
It's diesel, it's not, gas is, I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah, fuel for the building or fuel for the vehicles?
Vehicles.
Okay.
And so we did have a meeting today with DPW and Bob and myself and DADCO representatives. And we know that there was some issues with the accuracy of fueling in prior years. But what we were trying to get a handle on is what's the process of when the DADCO drivers fuel up their buses. Like, how do we identify the driver? How do we identify the bus? And what we learned today is that each driver has a PIN and each bus has a fuel key. So the driver has to put their PIN and then put the fuel key in, and then that registers the bus and the driver to fill up that particular vehicle. So Bob has been monitoring the fuel because we have an outside vendor. We want to make sure that we're paying attention to fuel usage since DADCO took over. And when he compares September and October to September and October of last year, we're already starting to use more fuel. But we're not clear on what the process was prior to this year. And there's the confusion. And even on the town side, they had a lot of their records get messed up because of the lightning strike, and a lot of those records got lost. We're trying to look at some of the previous bills and match those up. So Bob still has some research to do on that, but right now he's a little concerned because we're showing more fuel usage in the buses than we did previously, and we're wondering if this is gonna have to be our baseline year because we might not get accurate data previous, so.
So we're pulling out of the same tank as the town, but we have PIN numbers that basically isolate what we're using versus what town
Correct.
is using, correct?
Correct, that's right. And each driver has a PIN, and then each bus has a fuel key, so they can actually track to the driver, to the bus, to the vehicle. And why that's important to Bob is the newer vehicles use less fuel, so he's paying attention to miles per gallon per vehicle. It's a lot of tracking on his part, but it's essential for us to do to make sure that, they're using the fuel appropriately and we're not.
Yeah, and then the second
Having
question is on the special ed being 85,000 over. You had mentioned that we have an extra van. is that van on the budget, does that go against special ed's budget, or does that go against transportation?
It goes against transportation and special ed. There's a separate category in the transportation line item. It's the big category for the special ed, and it's special ed transportation.
The town gets a excess cost grant at the end of the year, and we've already set the stage where we're going to be requesting that. Because every time we spend money that's unbudgeted on special ed, it's taken away from the general ed budget population.
Right.
So every year, the general ed kids, students, you know, they don't get the books, they don't get the pencils, they don't get the crayons, whatever it might be, because we have to cover this. It's never been right, but that's the way it's been, so we're addressing that now. Bob's addressing that along with Melinda and the Board of Finance, that money should come back so we can spend it on the general ed.
Yeah, I guess my question's more towards where it says areas to watch transportation and special ed. I mean, obviously, it sounds like we are categorizing it the right way, but again, like, the van goes to be charged to special ed, but the driver is part of what?
The driver is a.
Part of transportation.
No, we don't pay for the driver itself. The driver is employed by DATCO. You're just paying, say it costs, a bus costs you $100 a day. That's what you're paying, that plus the fuel.
Where does that go? Which line, I guess, is what I'm asking.
The fuel goes under buildings and maintenance. It's, you know, part of it's listed in Bill's budget, for example. Buses are, you know, listed also in plant and operations, which also, you know, transportation. But you identify special ed transportation differently because you can apply for different kinds of reimbursements for it.
Right, but does all 100% of the expenses on that, let's just say that one additional van,
Yes,
get charged to special ed, or a portion to transportation?
it's special ed transportation.
It's all special ed. Everything that
Just wanna
we
make
can,
sure
that we can identify special ed, no matter what it is, if it's transportation, paras, or whatever, it goes towards special ed.
Okay.
So that we can categorize everything and try to get as much of the reimbursements as we can.
Right.
And it's not just excess cost, it's also Medicaid reimbursement too.
Right.
That's why we have to separate transportation by that.
Right,
we have
I
to
mean,
separate that.
my only caution, again, is transportation, as we know, was a hot topic for a number of years,
And it still
Just wanna
will,
make
and
sure
it
it's
still will be,
Right.
and that's why they're watching the fuel. And if it was underreported for years, the fuel consumption, and now all of a sudden we're looking at what the reality is,
Right.
that's gonna blow everything out of whack
Correct.
too. So there's things we gotta be careful about.
yeah.
And no one was really, I mean, outside of the bus coordinator, but I don't think there was a real emphasis on tracking fuel usage with the buses.
No, it's a
So
town
we're,
entity.
we're kind of really paying attention to it because it is an outside vendor fueling at our pumps. And so
Right.
we want to make sure that
Yep.
what they're using, they are accurately using.
So, Thompson has dedicated buses 1 through 15, and 1 through 15 do not go to Woodstock or Putnam, or they stay in
No.
Thompson for.
And so, for example, we have St. Joe's who contracted through DADCO to use buses for their field trips. We made sure that we're getting a fuel credit. If they fuel, obviously it makes sense, they're gonna fuel up there, but we wanna make sure that we're getting that fuel credit. So there's a process in place where Karina alerts Bob, and Bob is looking for that fuel credit on the next statement when it comes in. It's a lot of work, and you have to think in a lot of different ways, but that came up during conversation, and we said, whoa, wait a minute, we gotta make sure that that fuel is, we're credited for that fuel, because we shouldn't be paying for the fuel for that trip.
It's a lot of fun.
Anybody else have questions about this? All right, so what are we up to now?
So we're back to,
The cafeteria weapons?
oh, do you wanna go on the timeline? Does anyone have questions on that?
Oh, I have a
voting
second.
on it.
Huh?
voting on that later, right?
I thought everybody was
Everybody good with that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I don't have any questions.
Oh, I thought you did.
I'm just saying, staying in order.
Okay.
Keeping in mind.
Cool. Now we're working on the wages.
Thank you.
We'll
Okay.
deliver 'em.
So, that's our timeline, that's what we're gonna be working towards, and we'll share that with the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. How about the cafeteria workers?
Okay, Bob, you wanna help me with this one?
Yeah, sure.
So what we did notice, our food service director, Lisa Duran, came to us, letting us know that we have some part-time workers who are non-union, who are, and Bob will go over their rate of pay, who are at a very low rate of pay. And also a comparison of her own salary compared to other directors in the area. And so I'm gonna turn it to Bob because he did a comparison analysis.
Sure, I'll start at the top. Basically, the director right now makes $20.88 an hour. The next lowest paid cafeteria director in the area is at $24.40. The difference would be $3.52 an hour. The wage would be, the difference between what's current and what's projected is $57.64. FICA and Medicare added with that is $62.04.95 would be the increase. That would be, her insurance is already included, so there's no change in the insurance.
And that's Woodstock, isn't that?
Yeah.
Other director is Woodstock, so they have less students, correct?
Yeah, and most of that's a pre-K to 8 school district. I know from the area that I came from that the 40 would be probably part of the lowest down in the southeast area, part of the state too. The next thing would be the part-time folks. You have 5 part-timers that are making anywhere between $10.10 an hour and $12.30 an hour. We talked about bringing them up to the projected, what the step 1 is in the union, which is $12.86 an hour. The total impact of giving these 5 people increases is $5,200 in the overall budget. None of them would qualify for insurance. This was most of these people are at 15 hours a week. And what I included was the hourly difference, the yearly impact, plus the employer insurance like FICA and Medicare, and then the total cost by person. It'd be anywhere between $361 to $1,782.68. So the total, the increase would be $5,200
So the increase for
for 5 people.
The director and the 5 people is $11,404, and we believe that the program can sustain that. I did talk to you earlier in the year about increasing a half-time worker to full-time. We are still watching the numbers. We want to see a good history over time. We know that we're serving more meals, but we feel like we want to give it to the first of the year before we make that recommendation. But as we were looking at that, these numbers popped out at us, and we really do have to reconcile this.
So are you looking to do this immediately?
Yeah.
This is me speaking, but the part-time people, I don't see a big impact. But the director, as much as, she just got a raise, right?
She got a small raise.
She got a small
1.5%.
raise. But we have a number of other non-union employees that don't come to us in the middle of the year asking for a bump. Not saying that she doesn't deserve it, and the cafeteria is running very well and it's very busy, but it's the middle of the year. I can't see us doing it in the middle of the year for that much money. But that's my opinion, I'm only one of 9.
In January, minimum wage goes up to $11. So the ones that are making below $11 automatically have to go to 11.
Well, those I said, I don't have a problem with them.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's small money right now for 15 hours a week. It doesn't have a huge impact.
Our cook makes 26 cents an hour less than our director. So, I mean, considering all the hard work she's done with the breakfast program, bringing in grants and continues to do so. I just feel that we should at least bring her up to the lowest director in the region, and that's what we did by moving her to the 40.
We wanna discuss
Oh.
this now, or we wanna do it when we,
Well,
cause I've got
we,
thoughts.
we can discuss it now. It's, I mean, it's gonna come up under action items, but again, it's the middle of the year, we have a budget in place. I don't know how you people feel, but tell me.
So my opinion is identical. Look, we set a budget, we're supposed to work off of that budget, and we've heard it for years. In the middle of the year, you know, we're just handing out raises. That's not right. We have a budget, a number was budgeted for that. Now, I also understand the cafeteria runs separate, okay? It is essentially self-funded, which is something, unfortunately, that the general public doesn't understand sometimes. So this is a little different when it comes to, quote, handing out a raise in the middle of the year. So that's something to consider. Now, from a workforce standpoint though, this part-time thing actually possibly bothers me more in that, you know, we have it listed here as PT1, PT2, PT3. Well, if PT, you know, 1 has been here for a year and PT4 has been here for 5 years and all of a sudden we're all making the same amount of money, I have a problem with that too. Not my place, but is that something that's been discussed?
But it's a non-union, non-seniority
Sure, I understand that, but
situation.
that's all I ever worked in, was non-union, non-seniority. And if the guy that was working for a year all of a sudden got bumped to the same pay I got after 10 years, I wasn't happy about it. So I don't know, that to me seems a little odd, to all of a sudden bump everybody. Right, you know?
Yeah.
All of a sudden everybody's equal. Not my decision, director's decision, I guess.
But is
They
there
know.
other union, or I know it's union members, is no matter like if you're here for 1 year or 20 years, do you know what I mean, it's like the same base, you know what I mean, there's our employees,
Right.
but they're not non-union employees.
Just saying, it seems odd.
Again, it does, but if they're doing the same job, no matter if they've been here a year or 10 years, if they're doing the same job, they should get the same pay.
Really?
Yes.
No?
Yes.
No, I disagree.
Okay.
Should be a range of the pay.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanna work where you work.
Yeah.
That's how I treat my employees.
You do get
So-
some benefit for
Yeah.
longevity,
We
because
have to
when
put
you
up
come
with you
in
for
at
that
the
long.
starting
Yeah.
rate, each year everybody gets a percentage of raises if you get a raise. And it kind of, you know, you've been here 3 years and everybody got a 50-cent raise per year, then you're making $1.50 after 3 years, and the guy who's been here 1 year's got 50 cents. So you kind of work it that way, and
I totally disagree. If you're doing the same job, you deserve the
Well-
same pay. Again, my
Well,
opinion, that's your opinion, and that's fine.
no,
My opinion.
I mean, you do get a little benefit for being here for 5 years versus the guy that's been here for 2. But you start at the same rate if you start at the same time, because you're doing the same job,
All right, well, this.
you've just
this-
been doing it a little bit
Yeah.
longer.
Analysis, that's all, you're looking to bring everybody up to what? Cause what happens when January comes and these 2 individuals that make 10-10, they're bumped up to 11, and then you have some other person making 11.50, see, you know what I mean, I don't know.
I would say,
I'm just
that,
saying.
oh, I'm sorry, I would say that PT5's been here longer.
No, yeah.
Because I'm assuming everybody came in at the same rate of pay, because they were doing the same job.
We haven't touched the part-time wages since I've come. We haven't done anything for those part-time people. And I will say this, with that breakfast program and them being a little short-staffed, they're working
Oh, I
really
don't
hard.
disagree, that's added to their responsibility.
So,
And we are getting reimbursed, remember, from the federal government.
Yeah, I don't
for those
disagree
meals
that we
served.
should do something for them,
so with,
because of the added responsibility.
Go ahead, wait, finish.
Because of the added responsibility of the breakfast program. And I don't disagree that we shouldn't do something for, I agree that we should do something for the director because of the added responsibility of the breakfast program. But I'm not sure that this is the time to do it. She had that responsibility this starting school year, and maybe we, and this is maybe our excuse, we dropped the ball by not addressing that in this current budget year.
Well, without a doubt, there's more work going on, and
Yeah,
there's no question the job is being done
But we
well.
dropped the ball in this budget by not addressing the fact that she has more
Well,
responsibility.
I could make that same argument with almost any of our
Well,
non-tenured people.
true,
Of what
true.
they're working above and beyond.
Well,
It's-
everybody
It's the middle of
is in
the,
the
it's
school.
the middle of the, it's the middle of the budget, it's the middle of the year. But, having said that, the part-time, I don't have an issue with it, it's not a lot of money, and it's
I
gonna
agree.
go up anyway in January, so why not just do it now?
Again, it's your discretion, I'm just giving my opinion. I think that.
Me too. So
Why
when it
do
comes
you
up for a vote, we can vote the way we want,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's,
Can we look at it one other way?
of course.
So January first, the people that are making 10/10, it's gonna go up 90 cents.
Yeah.
So why don't we just go across the board 90 cents, so it's an even increase for all of them, whether it's part PT five or PT
Yeah.
one.
I think that's the fairest way to do it.
Probably the fairest thing, and then we address it at the end of the budget process.
That was what I was thinking.
This
Either
way
a-
there's
a
no
fixed dollar or a
favoritism,
fixed
it's just,
percentage.
right.
Yeah, cause it's,
The bottom two have to come up 90 cents anyways, so it's probably fair if we just did the other three, just to get us through the year. Just a thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm just figuring out a dollar
I was
total.
just gonna
Perfect.
say.
All right, so it'll be a little bit more than, the $5,200, but, yeah, if it's 90 cents times 15 hours times, what, 180?
Times five.
Well,
Yeah, but no.
but, but,
No,
yeah, cause he's
0.9
taking
times
it off the
5
10/10, and the guy that's making 12/30 is
Yeah.
gonna get 90 cents, so that's gonna
Yeah,
increase
times
the
15 hours,
insurance
times the number of
and
weeks.
the FICA and the food
Oh,
and.
because these weren't projected to go up, they're just 90, it was more than 90.
Yeah,
Right, it's gonna be a little
Two of
bit.
them are gonna be 276, that's over $5 right
So it'll be a wash. It'll be wash. That's, when it comes up, you suggest that when it comes up in action items.
I'm,
It's okay.
I'm getting 13.50, let me figure it out again.
but it'll be in the ballpark, and, you know, they're not eligible for insurance or.
Not, yeah, no, none of them are.
Right.
Right, so,
That can be your motion, if that's what you want.
well, it's fair to everybody.
All right, so, anybody have any more questions about this right now? All right, let's move on. The administrative reports. Mr. Sugarman, you want to start us off?
Just a couple things that I just have to share. All the title grants, Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 were submitted. Just waiting for the State Department for approval. There is one late action that took place with the Title 3 grant. Marionappolis received the majority of the funds for Title 3. So we received around, I don't have the number off the top of my head, 16,152, I believe.
And Title III is for English.
English language learners, which is the quickest. Marionappolis received the majority of that because their students from out of country, from a lot of Asian countries, were counted as Title III. So they received around 15,000 and change. We received around 600 and change. They have elected to not accept the funds. And so with them not accepting the funds, we get those funds. We have not in previous years, last year was the first year in about 5 years that Thompson had actually applied for Title III funds. Big part of the, I brought it up last year, I think part of the reason was is we got a small part of that.
Yeah.
But we always wanted to be active in accepting those funds, even if it was just $500 for this type of incident. So us accepting those funds and us putting in our application, we're doing it also for Marionappolis. With them not accepting those funds, we get those funds. However, those funds are allocated specifically for Title III usage. But a lot of that usage and the way we write our grant to do that, a lot of that supports reading programs because, you know, reading interventions, because a lot of English language learners that we have, we only have 5 in district that qualify. but a lot of them also need a lot of reading intervention support. So a lot of that extra funds that we'll now receive will help also supplement some of the work that we're doing with reading support in the district. So this is a little bit of like, this is technicality, and I am working with the state because it is like, it's not common for someone to do that.
Why would they not accept
There's
that?
some reporting that's required and management of that, and I think Marianapolis being a private institution, and I'm not very familiar with Marianapolis's books. I know people in the community or have kids that go there. You know, they, I think for the amount of energy and cost, you know, that's like one tuition kid almost. So it's like,
Yeah.
for them, it's like, no, it's okay. Like, we can support those kids through our own funding and built into our budget. We don't need federal dollars and doing the budgeting, the reporting and all that is just, it's time.
So what happens next year?
So I've been in contact with my contact at the state. It's kind of unusual. They're probably gonna reach out with Marianapolis too, because it is so unusual, just to confirm that that's what they wanna do. But they have signed that, they've re-signed the private participation form to indicate that they do not want those funds. So it's like a new thing to our title. It's, you know, $16,000 into the $15,000 and plus that we weren't expecting.
Yeah, no, that's fine,
But
but next year, if this.
We shouldn't budget for it. Like, if this is, we shouldn't plan on budgeting.
No, because next year they might wanna
They
take it.
can at any point say that they want it now.
But are we gonna do the whole process again next year?
We should continue to do the process.
All right.
Absolutely, you know.
So did they fill out a grant for that money?
We fill it out because we are the LEA.
Okay.
And they are a private institution in Thompson. We are responsible for filling out the grants. Same thing with Title I and Title II funding. We fill out those grants, and there's a part of it, there's a significant section of that that's for private school participation. How much is allocated towards them, and how are they gonna use those funds? So Thompson, in the past, has kind of never filled out Title III because the amount of money we were receiving was less than $500. And Marianapolis was receiving. So my first year kind of looked into it, and last year was talked with my contact at the state about all of these issues, and we were like, well, it doesn't matter. We have an obligation to put that grant in, even if we only get $500, $600, we can use it. But at the same time, we have an obligation to Marianapolis to be transparent and put that in and explain the whole process about it too.
Yeah.
Does St. Joe come involved in that?
They
at all?
don't have Title III.
Okay.
They're part of the other grants, but they don't have any students for Title III.
How does Title, I guess the part that I'm having difficulty with, it's a private institution.
Yeah.
Why are they entitled to state funds? Is that part of the reason why our state is in
It's
such
federal.
crisis?
It's federal
I mean,
funds.
It's a private institution.
You can go.
No, I mean, it sounds.
Title money is part of federal funding.
But it's a private institution. They don't, I think it's something for another day, but.
Yeah, so it's just part of the federal regulations around entitlements and how they're allocated and who they're meant to be used for.
And those monies are restricted. Title I is restricted for students. The way we get funding is generated out of our poverty rate. We service students that are not reading on grade level, so the federal government makes an allocation to those non-public institutions so that those students who are not reading on grade level under Title I get some additional services. We send a reading teacher down to St. Joe's, for example, to service students there. We share our professional development money. A certain percentage goes to St. Joe's. And does it go out to Marianapolis as well, Bob? No, not Title II, but some of our Title II money does as well. It's a certain percentage that's allocated by the federal government to support initiatives in those private schools. It's been an angst for public education for years because we have to, under IDEA, it's the same thing.
Right.
If there was a special education student who needed service, we would have to send out faculty to support those students as well, or provide them with funds out of our allocation to support those students. It's been something that's been since the dawn of time. It's very exasperating. We do the work on the grant end of things, but yet some of those funds get turned over. And we're the fiscal agent, have to process all the POs and the payment and reimbursement. So it's even taxing on the finance department.
And each title, including IDA, which is not an entitlement, but it kind of is, they all have slightly different regulations about private participation. So each one is slightly different, and you have to kind of look at one very separately of how you approach it. But, you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
I think at this
directed-
point, let's not
directed
complain
here,
about it,
it's
because we're getting
something to be brought up with
$15,000.
our state representative. or
Next
something.
year.
But I think it's something that we shouldn't count on every year, because at some point, Marianapolis could just say, we want to try this new program, and we have this chunk of money sitting here that we know is ours.
And the use of those funds are so restricted. And so you can't spend those dollars on something else. You have to spend it on what the federal government is giving you those funds for. So Title I is always to support either literacy or mathematics, and you have to really zero in and focus. And Lindsay Exahulis just wrote the grant, and it was very specified. I used to write those grants in my previous life, and they are just very restrictive. And you have to, you know, they can come out and check and see that you're using those funding appropriately. So I'm happy that if they don't want the money, we can certainly spend that money on reading interventions to help our L population here in Thompson.
But I guess my question, and this was last year, are we legally obliged to apply for that?
No.
Okay,
But we should.
But if history repeats itself and they take the lion's share, just say it costs us your time and Bob's time, and we figure it's $800 a year to get 500 back. It's really not worth our investing in this.
But if they come to us and say we want to apply for it, we are legally obligated to apply for it.
Okay, that was,
Yeah.
so we are.
Yes.
We are obligated, okay.
A couple other things. We just had our restorative justice training in district through the International Institute of Restorative Practices. I just want to shout out Kathleen Collins, Amy Maloney, Paula Cadera, Rose Galazzo, did I say that right? Judith Perkins, Laura Stefanski, Patty Chanel, Ashlyn Ellsworth, Larry Prentice, and I Poland all participated in that training. We have a meeting scheduled next week to kind of talk about, as a team that participated, what do we want to kind of like look like as pilot, and how do we want to talk about some of those strategies with restorative justice. Also working with Bob about revisiting our Medicaid provider. It's not the right word, but we currently use Kinney Associates. Over my couple of years, I've never been fully sold on Kinney Associates. We're going to look at switching to CompuClaim. The difference is Kinney Associates is kind of like here's the flat rate, like here's our payment and provide it. CompuClaim is based off of percent of how much they recover in Medicaid costs for us. So they have some incentive to make sure that we're recovering all of that cost. And we are kind of in that difficult zone where we are small enough, we're right at that line where we're not quite small enough where we're allowed to opt out of filing for Medicaid, but we're also big enough where we can get a good chunk of funds for Medicaid. So it does take up some time and oversight and time from teachers to put in that Medicaid reimbursements, and oversight from multiple people to look at DACO and fuel costs and transportation miles to my offices and running reports and all those things. So the return of investment is there, but I think we need some additional support from a different partner in Medicaid reimbursement.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of years interacting with CompuClaim, and they are pretty aggressive to make sure that you wring out every last penny of Medicaid reimbursement. And let's face it, we have to look for all of those pennies to help balance the budget. And I will say that Mr. Sugarman efforts last year, we were only getting reimbursed before, at least before my tenure, about $11,000 a year, and he tripled that last year on Medicaid reimbursement. So it's not a big it's not a huge amount of money, but it is it's enough for us to put the effort in.
Sure. A couple other quick things. Sorry, I'm taking so much time. I usually don't, so apologize. One, Tools of the Mind rollout at the pregame I think has gone very well. Nav and I have been talking about partnering together and kind of sharing some costs to look at further expansion at the elementary school into K. So that's something that's going very well. We have 3 teachers that are trained in Tools of the Mind. They just went to their third session of workshop. They're very much bought into it, and they're very much pushing us to have it roll up to kindergarten for next year, so that's something Nav and I are talking about. We also had a group of teachers go to the second mindfulness workshop session. Mary Thompson, Kathleen Collins, Mary Monahan, Ginny Moylan, Kate Anderson, Michaela Prento all have attended and are leading, and we're having conversations in district after they come about kind of their piloting within their classrooms and at their grade teams about different mindfulness techniques, and they're even trying to set it up as a PBIS ticket to earn like that yoga time or mindfulness time. A couple quick things. The next board meeting, just to give you a preview, I will need to be submitting and maybe talk to Melinda of how to go about this. Policy update for restraint seclusion policy. The law got updated, we're required, I left it in there in previous notes, but kind of alluding to, I've been working on updating that policy with Shipman and Goodwin, but we need to update restraint seclusion policy by January 1st, 2019. So I almost had a kind of a draft ready to kind of bring to the policy, but I kind of ran out of time. So by the next board meeting in December, I'll have that. And I don't know if it goes through policy first to review. We can talk about it.
But didn't we have CAVE part of their
Yep.
what we're paying for is them give us policy updates?
Correct, and we get them regularly.
And since we partner with Shipman Goodwin, they also did it too with us as well. So I'm trying to like put those two together.
No, I got you, but we pay for it every time we
Pay
talk
for
to
both.
them, but we've already paid for CAVE. But every time you talk to Shipman and Goodwin, it's extra money.
I think they just sent out
This is
the
a bonus.
policy blanket to everyone.
Because we're a partner district with us, they just sent it out to all districts that they
It didn't
partner with
cost
saying,
us extra.
here's a template to work off of. We send them a note, yeah. Last thing, just so you know, because it did come up, you know, again, the reason why excess cost is so important is because every year we kind of try to we try to hit a moving target with special ed tuition. And you get 2 kids moving to district, and that's $160,000 right there, not including transportation costs. So we've had that this year. We've had new kids move into district, and on top of that, by the end of the month, we're probably going to be outplaced 5 kids new this year. And I know I talked about where we were and where we went to at the beginning of this year, and I remember I said 15 is probably the realistic number.
Yeah.
We're going to be at 15, you know, and it might go up 1 or 2 when it's all said and done. But, you know, that's out of necessity. Like, there was things that were happening that we needed to respond to and make sure we were providing the most appropriate place for those students while also supporting the vast majority of students. So there actually has been, you know, 5 students that have been outplaced by the end of this month, this school year. I won't designate which schools to do that, but that is something that's always tricky. We're always looking at, we're always trying to talk about and be aware of, and I think that's why that excess cost grant is there, and part of state law is they know when school districts go over, the state is obligated to help provide that supplemental to supplement that overage that happens.
Right.
For districts.
And as much as we have to keep an eye on that, we're legally and morally obligated to provide the most appropriate placement for any one of these students. So not only do we have to do it, we should be doing it. So it is what it is. Any questions for?
Yeah.
So it's approximately about 80,000, right, for outplaced?
It's
for
average, that's
average.
the average.
So for 15, 80,000 is about 1.2 million. Of that, reimbursed at 80%?
70%.
It changes
70.
every year.
74.8. Last year was 74.89.
Okay.
They change it based off of the fiscal year, they can adjust it, but right now it's 74, it'll change.
And that 74 is only above our cost. That's-
You have to go above a certain
Yeah,
cost.
you go above and then it
It's not
gets
of the
kicked
total
in.
80.
No, right, I know, it's
So
a,
we have to spend
right.
77.
4 and a half times the amount.
Yeah.
And then it kicks in.
And then it kicks in,
And
and then
then
we
it's
only
only
get
the
70%
percentage
of
of-
that back.
Okay.
So we have a spreadsheet that I had in my office that, you know, we're gonna meet with Bob in a little bit, cause we met with Melinda, earlier last week. But we have a thing that kind of, it sets what the overage is, so we can kind of roughly get an idea of what that excess cost is on a weekly basis as a new kid will come in. It already does, we set the formula for it in there.
Do we?
But that includes transportation, and so that's why It came
Right.
up earlier, that's why we have to document that separately,
Correct.
because when we do the excess cost grant, we have to
You add that in,
document the
right.
transportation in there, we have to, if we get audited, we have to show that that was for a special ed student.
Okay. And we get the reimbursement funds, they hit us on this fiscal year. It doesn't carry into the next budget year, does it?
We get reimbursed
year.
this year.
It's whatever this is.
We have two filings that we have to do, we have to do a December first filing, and we have to do a March filing.
You get-
Right, but there's
you
no
get paid-
carryover into the next budget.
No, you get paid January 31st and
June,
May
whatever.
30th, somewhere around there, or beginning of June. I don't remember the exact date, but
Okay.
it's toward the end of the fiscal year.
And it's specifically for this year because it's for those unforeseen costs of a kid moving into district or a high-cost kid coming into district that you couldn't have planned for, and the state helps offset that cost.
Okay.
Yeah, and Bob did a nice job explaining that to the chair of the Board of Finance. We had a meeting last week, and actually the first selectman, Kathleen was there, and she was really adamant about the fact that we desperately need those funds reimbursed to the BOE. State statute says that that money comes back to the BOE, and Bob did a nice projection showing them what our costs right now, just based on the students that need those extra services, what it's going to cost the district and where it's going to put us over. So I think when we go there on Thursday night before the full Board of Finance, we'll be able to present a really compelling case for that reimbursement, which we should have been receiving all along. But at this point in time, it's now critical to balance our budget.
Okay, the students with the IEP and the 504, you compare the October and the November, the numbers are not adding up. So just if you wanna find out why November is not accurate, so this way when you do December, you know it'll be back on track.
I'll look at that, we just copied it over from an Excel, so maybe something got added up in the Excel.
I,
Good. Okay. Mrs. Baker.
Yeah.
Okay.
With respect to time, I will have deferred to my student liaisons for sharing what is upcoming, and again, encourage you to join us for the holiday concert. And have it, yeah.
Mr. Prentice, do you have anything to share from the middle school?
Yeah, I have just a few highlights here. On behalf of the Thompson Middle School, of course, we'd like to welcome Mr. Steve Knowlton to the district, or to the middle school, I should say. He brings a wealth of experience and knowledge, and we're looking forward certainly to working with him. Congratulations to those students that participated in the Quinebaug Valley Musical Festival, and Mr. Leclerc, wonderful job to those individuals. As Mrs. Smith had mentioned earlier in the meeting, Fabulous Friday took place a couple weeks ago. So great job, congratulations to those students that earned the tickets to be able to participate in Fabulous Friday. We thought that was a pretty good experience, and we have another one coming up. Of course, kudos goes out to Mrs. Grow in the Student Council, as well as Troop, or BSA Troop 66, who is headed by Mr. Sean Kuchar, for the Veterans Day, their work on the Veterans Day Assembly this past Friday. Always just a really wonderful program for the middle school and the elementary school. So tip of the cap to those individuals. And then finally, just before the board meeting, we had our annual fall sports banquet. Congratulations to those students that participated in the athletics. Great job to them. Very difficult to balance the athletic demands with the academic demands, but they've done a wonderful job. So that's that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Beltram.
Just a couple of things I want to draw your attention to. Tomorrow night, Christy Connor is going to receive, first that we've ever had, District Paraeducator of the Year, and it's for the 2019 Anne Marie Murphy Paraeducator of the Year Award. So that will take place in Hartford and Mrs. Jones is going to accompany her since I am here for parent-teacher conferences, so it's a nice award. I also, like Mr. Prentice said, it's how do you teach your students citizenship, and having a Veterans Day ceremony like we have had, it does. You can see it, you can hear it in the kids' voices, having them sing, the Forteza, John Heath spoke, Mr. Lilly couldn't make it this year, and we missed him, and so having a nice ceremony that was put together. Mr. McDonald did a nice job with Mrs. Rossetti, and Mrs. Cox also having the third graders write to those veterans who are at Rocky Hill. So it's nice to have the elementary kids involved in bringing that to the forefront for them, of Veterans Day. And just last is just on the upcoming events, which is coming, really soon, the 16th. Tom Cole is from Putnam Lions Club, once again is returning, and to vision screen the entire school. Middle school is also working with him, and he's able to start us on Thursday. So Mrs. Aloyan looked at all the kids who have been screened back in May, when we had, our first kids came into filling out applications for families and so forth for pre-K, K, but there were still 74 students that were not screened at that time. So catching that group on Thursday, and then first grade through fourth grade will get screened on Friday. So it's, we've been able to recommend to families, to go see their specialist if they need to. So it's a lot of work, tedious, and we thank him for it.
Mrs. Spinelli, you got any athletics you want to share with us?
Fall season's come to an end. We have football's got 2 more games. Girls soccer just completed their season. They lost in the quarterfinals. Our cross-country team competed in the Class S championship meet. We had some personal bests. We didn't have any winners. And boys soccer was finished up. Middle school, we had something tonight. We had our parent-player meetings last week for winter sports, and we're going to be opening with middle school sports tryouts start Thursday.
Great. Mr. Poland, I don't want to ignore you.
I think the only thing I would add, we're very fortunate, even though we're a small school up at Turtelot, because Mr. Sugarman took Mrs. Anderson to be part of the yoga mindfulness thing this weekend. I had the pleasure of accompanying 7 of our musicians to the Connecticut Music Educators Association auditions for the state, for the Eastern Region band and choir. We left at 7:30, got there 8:55 for Mac Brower's 9 o'clock audition for the tuba. Still had one of his highest scores ever. He was phenomenal. And so just getting to spend time with those musicians, and I think for me the best part was usually, the kids kind of hang out in the gym or just wait till their audition, they come back. But these kids, they just wanted to be where their colleagues were. So when it was Matt's turn, they were all outside in Matt's room, and when it was Paige's turn, they were all cheering Paige, standing outside her door, making sure she was okay. Just the camaraderie around that. So going back to what Tom said earlier with regard to the alumni concert, that spirit lives on and continues, and it was just one of my favorite parts of the weekend. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. I guess that's it. Okay, so let's go to action items. First thing is the minutes of our board meeting on October 9th. Could I have a motion? Val's got the motion. Could I have a second?
I'll second.
Linda has a second. Do we have any corrections? Omissions, deletions? We good? Okay, all those in favor of accepting the minutes? minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody want to abstain? Okay, next is our budget timeline process. So you all have it. Sean Masters. Okay. We good? So I guess we'll need a motion to accept these dates. Kathleen?
I'll second it.
And Sean? Anybody have questions?
I think is there a correction here? If you look on the last column, goes May 5th, April 25th, April 11th, April 4th. I think it just needs to be inverted.
No, it's a
No,
snake.
Follow the line, Tommy.
Follow the line, Tommy.
Start at the beginning. Start at the beginning and follow the line.
Read the exam, read all the things, and sign your name at the beginning. Otherwise you fail.
You said this coincides with Board of Finance?
Yeah.
Actually, it incorporates the Board of
Yeah,
Finance.
right.
It's a beautiful chart when you read it the right way. Just letting you know.
You miss out on the color too. The color was exquisite.
See, that's it.
All right, so all those in favor of these dates, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody want to abstain? That's done. Now you got it.
Mr. Chairman.
Non-union cafeteria worker wage increase.
Mr. Chairman?
How do you want to do this? Do you want to, yes?
I'd like to make a motion that we look at the wage increase, but we do it so it's a firm 90 cents across the board, and we address it at the end of the budget fiscal year.
All right, so wait a minute. We have two different things here.
Okay.
So you want to do the part-time ones and the coordinator separately?
I think we have to.
I think we have
All
to.
right, so let's start, amend your motion just to say.
Chairman, I
part-time.
amend my motion.
To part-time, but effective when? I would have.
Yeah, January 1st, I believe, because that's when it's gonna be legally binding.
Okay, you don't have to wait, but if you wanna wait. We can make it.
So
we
let
can
me make my motion, and then anybody has, we can.
Okay, so he's got his motion. Could I have a second to Tom's motion, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, now some more discussion.
Okay.
All right, so you were talking about the part-time
Yep.
workers, you're talking about 90 cents.
I say we just go across the
An hour.
board, 90 cents, that takes into consideration time.
And give me a date when you want to.
January, I'd say January
I say
1st.
January first. You know, I mean, to me, because it is going up, then we can say that's why we have to go up.
Okay, all right, that makes perfect sense. We could start it now, we could start it December 1st, we could start January 1st. We have January 1st on the floor here.
When's the next pay period for them, and like when, how many more pays is there till January 1st?
That's a letter.
Bob, when's the next pay period?
We could start at the effective date regardless of the pay period. You could start it on January 1st, which is where the minimum wage increases. The cost would be, to start January 1st is $21.56.
So are we good with January 1st, or would you like a different date? We're good with January 1st. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to go across 90 cents each, effective January 1st for the part-time.
I don't know, I'm trying to run the numbers here, hold on.
$1.61. We take the difference
The
for what
difference.
you're proposing and spread it equally across everyone.
Yeah, is that gonna come out to, what's the average of 11? All right,
You already figured it out.
oh, you did, oh, thank you. You had the spreadsheet, oh, that's way lower.
Huh?
Yeah, it's only, the total,
It's
total
not-
impact
I-
would be,
I don't think so.
it's $215 a month. So the total impact would be, $21.56 if you started.
Oh, that's way lower. We could afford to give them $1.50 an hour. Well, I'm just saying, if you wanted to come in the 5,000 ballpark, you could afford to give them more.
Yeah.
Try it with $1.25 I mean, cause you can just run it through your worksheet, try it with $1.25. I'm trying to, you know, I mean, if we were happy with giving the 5,000, he's only coming to 2.90.
Yeah, buck 61.
I
across
can't
the
get
board.
what?
$1.61 across the board.
Jody just figured it out.
Oh, you did? Oh, all right.
But we already
Do
have-
the
we already-
$1.50.
Okay, but we already have a motion on the floor at 90 cents, so
Well,
we're going to need to
go back, I mean, we were
wait.
happy with the 5.
we're going to need to vote on that, and you can defeat that motion and redo it.
The only problem is, to do that, you're putting the one at 12.30 much higher, and they're getting close to what the director is making. And if we're not going to give a raise to the director.
Well, we're gonna,
Here's
I think,
here's the issue. Here's the issue. That level 1 in the union makes $12.86 an hour.
And we'd be going over that.
Okay, that is an issue.
Okay.
That is an
You're
issue.
right.
But it's so
I think that's why we did the 12, increasing the
All right,
to
that's an
12.86.
issue.
There are union
What,
workers in the cafeteria.
okay, let's see, when it breaks 12.
I've got it.
That's why we.
There's union workers in the cafeteria,
so the 90
so we
cents.
can't go,
Well, do we have a level
Night- the
one?
night-
we shouldn't
Level
go
1
about
is
it.
$12.86.
Right,
That's
do
why
we
we.
have a level one?
Yes,
But
Yes.
the 90 cents won't work that though,
but that's
No.
$1.50.
because that'll put two
All right,
of
but
them.
we can't do that because of the other.
That's kind of why we want to put
Okay, I
that.
understand. So we'll go back to the 90 cents, save our.
So the 90 cents still won't
Yeah,
work,
anything
because then
under
you're gonna
90.
put some above,
Yeah,
because you have one at 12.30,
yeah.
so you're
So-
already up to 13.20.
Okay, couple questions. First, why do we have, just, I don't know I'm just asking, why do we have union and non-union in the cafeteria? Why is the
Part-time,
caf-
that's a
Part-time.
part-time, it's a 15-hour a week thing.
Okay, so all the part-time people in the cafeteria are non-union,
Yes,
and all the full-time are union?
yes,
Okay, so,
outside of the director.
right, so back to the concept of, you know, when you start. I mean, so you're saying that no part-time person can ever make more, no matter how long they've been here, than entry-level union? Is that the effort? Is that, again, back to my belief that
Yeah.
the longer you're somewhere, the more you should be recognized. Are we, is that the precedent we're gonna set? Is
I-
that the 1286 is this entry level for union, which means no part-time worker will
Can
ever
never make more
change?
than
You're
that.
gonna start at 1286 and you're gonna stay at 1286 until you leave.
Well, that's a good point.
But
Yeah.
the other thing is that the minimum wage is going up, so that's what I'm having. a
Doesn't sound like we're
hard
anywhere
time-
close to that though, if we
No.
go to 1286.
Right, I'm wrapping my head around that, because I mean, if you're bringing this person up to 10.50, or 10, whatever it is, up to 11, do you know what I mean? Where, they're not really,
Yeah, they, I mean,
really getting anything out of it, do you know what I'm saying? It's not, it's you're just going up to minimum wage. If that's what the,
Right.
you know, state is, I'm just saying.
Right, but I think the bigger
It has
question,
to
it
be
sounds like,
relooked at.
is this whole 1286 is the step one.
Then we need to look.
All right.
Are we making it
Because,
so?
because I wanna see, this is just sprung on.
Yep.
I didn't know this. I'd like to table this whole thing until next month.
Okay.
At the minimum, so that we can see the impact on our budget, you know,
Mhm.
extend it out, both for the coordinator and the part-time. I don't have an issue with either one, but it's the middle of our budget season, and so I have a hard time. I wanna see what this looks like.
I'm with you.
Can we
All right.
ask- can we ask?
yeah, I
I
don't
just-
have a problem paying a part-time person who gets no insurance, who has no benefits, more than what the entry-level union person, who's going to be step 2 next year anyway.
But I don't know what step 2 is, I don't know how many are on step 1.
Well, that's a good question.
And I
Yeah.
don't know if there will be an issue with the union if
Well-
people make more. So I'd like to, there's
Sure.
just some of the
Well,
questions I'd
well,
like
these are
answered
questions,
first.
and I agree, we
You
need
know?
them answered, but they're only working 15 hours a week.
And that's why I didn't have a problem with this, the 1286, because it's not a lot of money.
No.
However, it's raising a lot more questions, I think.
Yeah.
And to Sean's point, is that the most I'll ever make, because,
That's your start
because
and
of
your
our
end.
start.
Yes.
So I would like those questions answered first, so if
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
wanna, if you
Do I
wanna
rescind it?
withdraw your motion and second,
Well, I
Would-
just wanted to throw out there, if we're
Go ahead.
going to do it the next time, I mean, we could even do something like part-time 1 and 2 to $11, part-time 4 to $12, and then 3 and 5 to the $12.86.
Sure.
And they would
Sure.
all,
and
Get a
everybody would
raise.
everybody would benefit, and we'd know where it's going.
What is the, sorry, Tom?
No, okay.
What is the entry level for someone coming in as the, first, into the cafeteria?
As a union?
Is it non-union?
it's gonna be
Non-union,
11
it's
as a
gotta be
January
like
1st.
10.
Oh, but has it
It's
been
probably
10-10?
that 10-10,
Okay.
probably.
I just haven't.
Are we able to ask about the seniority of these people? I mean, is that, not that it's a big, it's not a big number.
That's really easy.
Yeah, years worked.
Yeah, I would like to know, how long has this, $12.30 person been here? Has it been 2 years or 3
So
years?
PT three, PT
You're not
five,
talking
how
about-
long have they been here?
Yeah.
That's all right.
You're right, Bill, it's not a lot of money.
Okay, all right, so you wanna rescind your motion?
Yes,
And
Mr.
you
Chairman, I
rescind
rescind
the
the
second?
motion.
I didn't
Who's
second.
second?
That's okay.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
so,
Let's table
so,
this.
we're gonna table this until next month.
Too many
Can we,
questions, and we'll
can we
leave it
have
up to
a
Bob
couple
to do some
different scenarios?
analysis
We will,
and
we
answer
will,
some
I'm gonna,
questions for us.
I'll work with Bob and,
Okay.
and the
If
superintendent.
we have
Just-
questions, we send them
You
to you.
can send them to me, you can send them to Danielle, it doesn't matter. Good, okay. All right, so we have a request for maternity leave for Sarah Belvance. I need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Have a second?
I can second that.
Thank you, Linda. Silly as this is, but okay. Any questions?
Yeah,
This is
one
all
question.
closed.
How long has she been here?
She's a new hire. She's
I thought we had a policy that it was a year in order to have a maternity leave in our employment
I don't know if it's
Covered, right?
to be
Protected.
covered. Yeah, I just asked her.
It's a discriminatory category. I don't believe that you can,
You can't legally,
can't
no.
do that.
No, but I thought there was something in there where it was a year and.
No, it was, there was something in there, but it was for a leave or something like
Okay.
It's gonna be on.
But you
I just
can't-
wanna make sure that it, she
that.
has.
Everything, everything's according to contract.
Alright,
It
just
is
wanna-
well, she has that right to take family leave, but she hasn't been here long enough for that, but she is a protected class because
Right.
of her being pregnant. But it's gonna be non-paid anyway, cause she hasn't accrued any sick time. So we're just looking for a substitute during that period.
Okay.
So effectively, this is just so she's official, she's leaving and coming back.
Exactly.
That's all.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a different term that we would have to use because of the contracts. Not that I'm against the maternity leave, I'm not saying that. I just wanna make sure it was worded right.
Yeah.
I've been 3 times myself.
That's you too.
I still have my,
Question.
I still have my maternity leave.
Thompson resident,
Webster resident.
enrollment.
You never know.
We always have to ask.
You never know.
Trying to build our enrollment.
All right, any other questions,
Always
comments?
trying to find that silver lining, right, John?
All those in favor of the maternity leave, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, we have resignation. The first one is Teresa Yank.
That's the only one.
Oh, we got one here.
Retirement.
And a retirement. All right, so we'll do them separately. So can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, all, any questions? I mean, it's a resignation.
Years of service?
She was a new hire this year, and she just most recently resigned to Principal Beltram. We're in the process of hiring a new reading specialist for that position.
Okay. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have a retirement for Rose Palazzo Gagnon. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second, thank you, Val. Questions, comments? Okay.
She's leaving in mid-year in January. Rose teaches health at Thompson Middle School. She's devoted a lot of years to PE and healthcare in the district, and her retirement is with regret, but I know she's very happy about it.
All right, so all those in favor of the retirement, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Good. we have the Democrats were back in office in Connecticut, we have the same people that will be working on, most notably May Flexer, working towards changing the law so that we will be funded. Okay, so that's the best we can hope for right now. And she said if she was reelected, she would be going back into Hartford to try to get this money, because they just totally dropped the ball earlier in the year.
Right, but since they made the law, wouldn't you think that they could change the law rather quickly to allow for the whole big pool of money to just be distributed?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
seems like a real simple math problem.
You know,
Now, I know they're not good at that.
If
but
everybody just gave
not
up
what
a
they want
tiny
film.
bit, we'd get
That's my
some.
point.
But they're not gonna do that, so we have to change the
But-
law, cause the law supersedes them being nice, so.
Well, right, but
they
the
have to change
lawmakers that are doling out the money made the law. So change the law
And it
and
was
take
wrong,
the
and it
10
was
grand
wrong,
from
right,
everybody.
and that's what they gotta do, and she said
Exactly.
she's going back to Hartford to try to change the law. So we can stay in touch with her.
Yeah, just remind her.
And remind
Yeah,
her,
remind her every day.
and,
She gave me her cell number, that was a mistake.
What's her mobile number?
that
I'll
poor,
text it.
that poor woman.
Okay. That's her fault.
Okay,
So
so
one
that,
Said, call me anytime.
that's all,
Okay.
that's all business.
One other old business, I know the roofing issue, it just says we're continuing to address the roofing problems. Has there been any progress on the roof?
Well, that's part of the building project. I didn't see Mr. Birch must have left, but, oh, I didn't notice.
Any progress in a
Well,
closet?
it's part of the, they're chasing the leaks as they come up
Right.
now, but the roof will probably be changed next summer when
Okay.
school lets out. That's the plan, as long as everything is approved by the state. It'll come back here to us, and, the oil tanks, we have a meeting tomorrow, so,
Yeah. And I know you guys are all over it. I mean, it's just one of those things, we kick the can down the road, next thing you know,
yeah.
we're in a different situation.
It's
There's
being,
leaks everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
There truly are, and I can't tell you the countless times the roofers have been here to patch, and even when they patch, there's that section of the 8th grade wing that just keeps springing a leak. They fix it one place and then it finds another place to leak into.
it's gonna find a place to come in regardless, so that'll be taken care of with the building project. Any other old business? No other business. Citizens' comments? Yes?
My name's Mary Poulin. I am a parent of an 8th grade student. I've volunteered.
Could we have your address for the,
My address is 257 Reardon Road in North Grosvenor.
Thank you.
I've, not only as a parent, I've volunteered in this school for about 8 years, so I've seen the ups, the downs, the turns, the twists. I just want to make just a couple of comments after coming to quite a few of these, the Board of Education's in recent times. I just want to thank all of the educators that are here for sticking through and sticking with it. They've done a phenomenal job, and all of the changes that Mrs. Smith has made, thank you. And I just have a question about the PBIS. Is there any, that was implemented, I believe, in 2012, and it said that there was like a 3 to 5 year rollout plan for that. Well, now we're 6 years into the PBIS. I sort of have a distaste in my mouth about the whole PBIS program. I just don't know if there's any statistics in the school system. Are we any better than we were before we implemented this program, behavior-wise, with the children?
So that program, if implemented with fidelity, has great research to back it up. But it can't start and then stop and then start again. It has to be a continuum. And so we have our behavior therapists that are gonna be working with the teachers to give them strategies to appropriately implement the program. So she's pulling each grade level team, and she's gonna be working with each team. Today she gave them a little snippet during the faculty meeting of how to manage even just giving the incentives of the ticket so kids can earn those particular incentives. So it does have to be implemented with fidelity, and there has to be a behavior that you're trying to shape and mold, right? So I think the biggest overall agreement is, you know, respect for the teachers, respect for student to student. So trying to reinforce when we see students acting appropriately and respecting one another. I think at the elementary end, they do a nice job with that, and then something gets lost and it's more difficult as the students get older, right? Kids will work for stickers in kindergarten. And shape their behavior for stickers, but when students get older, there has to be a teachable portion of PBIS, and so that's the thing. Teachers went through training to 3 to 5 years and to implement with fidelity, but what happened along the way is there was a lot of false starts, and it wasn't a smooth implementation, at least since I've been here. I can't speak to what happened prior. But I do know that we need to get back to really looking at those behaviors we're trying to shape first, and then see what kind of incentives can help support the students. So we are re-looking at that.
Thank you. And just one more question about the part of the PBIS program. Mr. Prentice had spoke of the Fantastic Fridays. How often is it going to be a Fantastic Friday? From what my 8th grade son tells me, it's every other Friday, and the 7th and 8th grade is going to run on a half-day school schedule, and then they have an hour-and-a-half reward in the afternoon.
They get a period every other Friday if they earn it, and so we're gonna start to move that and eventually get it to once a month. So we're pushing it out. But what we're trying to do right now is try to get some incentives in place to manage behavior. And we feel that we're trying to do the frequency a little bit more often right now up front, but that we're going to push those off so that the incentive becomes a little bit, for lack of a better word, more challenging to attain. So.
Okay, and just 2 more questions. Is Mr. Knowlton that's coming in, is he here only for the rest of the duration of the 18-19 school year, or is he with us? Is he a hire and he's going to remain with us?
He currently has been hired as an interim principal for the remainder of this school year. We haven't made a determination, the Board of Education hasn't made a determination of what we're going to do moving forward, but he was hired as an interim as we speak, and we don't know what's going to happen beyond that, but it does give us a nice window of time if the members of the Board of Ed decide that we are going to permanently replace the principal. Gives us a good amount of time to be able to recruit and get some good candidates in for that position.
One more comment. The school that had that audit company had come in, that you spoke with staff, students, teachers. Do anybody who participated that or in the public how did we do? Do we get information back from that, or is that solely just your privilege?
No, I did get a sneak peek of the report. However, at the December board meeting, they will be presenting to the Board of Education and to the public their findings.
Thank you.
So you will get the same report that I took a look at, but Betty Ozka from the Center for School Change will be here at the December board meeting. Probably going to hold it in the auditorium so everyone will be comfortable, and she's going to go over the results of that report. You know, some really good highlights and some areas that we need to work on.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Shannon Julian. I'm actually the president of the PTO. I've been the president for the last 3 years. And the PBIS program, I just want to make a note. We give money to the former principal, $1,500, which we have a Tiger store, which a volunteer once a month, so the kids can come in and use their Tiger tickets to get prizes, and then he gives any other things, like activities like pizza or anything else he does. So I just want to make that clear that the PTO does help out with that program.
Just for the record, could I have your address, please?
Yep, 19 Blaine Road, North Gromdale.
Thank you. Other comments?
Bill, I know time flies. Has it really been 6 years?
I don't recall, I don't know.
6 years on
The
PBS?
act, yes, it was supposed to be, from the internet of my little world Google, it was supposed to be implemented with the Connecticut Public Act, against bullying, which the act is 11-232. The schools must take comprehensive steps to ensure that every child learns without fear, teasing, or humiliation or assault. And that was supposed to start July of 2012.
But that's not, but that's not
That's
what,
not
that's
PBIS.
not
That's
what
what we did it,
PBIS
though.
took place after that act.
Yeah.
Right, we
did
didn't
it.
start it back then.
Can I just
Right.
provide some, like, my first year here was the last year of a third-year partnership with SBDG through CERC to help launch PBIS.
We started in 14-15.
So
Yeah,
started in 14, 15, 16, 17 was the last year of a 3-year rollout, and then in my first year, I kind of saw some similar things that Ms. Smith talked about some stops and starts and some further alongs at certain schools than other schools.
It was about the time we had the accreditation, wasn't it?
That was, follow 14 visit.
Yeah, and then 14, I think we implemented, yeah.
Okay, other comments? Because I'm starving, I wanna go.
Can I make a quick suggestion?
Of course.
I'm Melissa Reed, I'm from 454 Fabian Road. My husband's been at his job for about 19 years or so, and just, I know he gets a 4% increase for cost of living. I didn't know if that would help with your, ladies in the cafeteria at all. 4%, I know it's a large, but he's been there 19 years, he deserves it, and
That's
everybody
good,
that
yeah.
works hard deserves whatever increase they get.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, neighbor. I'm at 640, baby.
God.
Yeah.
I like to know my neighbors, we're way up on the hill, so we don't really see them.
All right, so you're on the other
I'm
Fabian
on the
Road.
other
Okay,
side.
board of ed comments?
Yeah, it just sounds like we need a policy committee meeting, for the restricted.
We will. Yeah, we will need, I didn't mean about that. We will need one as soon as we get that.
With the budget season coming up, we need to schedule also a communications meeting as well.
That might be a good idea, let's do that, to get the word out, to get people to come to our budget workshop.
Yes.
So let's plan that for December, January, for
January.
Okay. Other comments?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.